Hi, everyone. Jim Killam here from the Wycliffe Global Alliance communication team. Recently, I did a short teaching session with Wycliffe South Africa members about some new things that are happening in AI and some new opportunities that we can use AI in ministry, particularly Bible translation ministry. Not so much translating the Bible specifically, but some of the peripheral activities around communication and other things that we can find ourselves doing in our ministries. So I thought it would be worth sharing this PowerPoint and this little session with everyone. So here we go. So we called this session AI, what can we do with it? Certainly there's much more you can do with AI than what I can talk about in a few minutes here, but some new things, again, that may be useful for you to be aware of. Why do I start with a photo of Machu Picchu, Peru? I was thinking back to a story that the author Donald Miller wrote once about taking a difficult, steep hike to get up to Machu Picchu, the famous ruins of a city up on a mountaintop in Peru. And he arrived at the top after this long, arduous hike and discovered there were people arriving by bus after a helicopter ride up there, and they had had a much easier time to get there than what he had just endured. First of all, the helicopter and the bus take less than an hour or about an hour. The trail that the author took was 4 days, I think, or even the shorter hike is 1.5 to 2 hours, and it's very steep. So that's the distinction between the helicopter and the bus and hiking. It was related, I think, or at least could be related to some of the things happening in AI. Recently, ChatGPT introduced something called GPT-5, and it's the latest and greatest iteration of ChatGPT, and it's one that I would encourage you to take a look at. It is actually quite a lot more advanced than the earlier ChatGPT versions. It's not perfect, certainly, and it probably never will be, but there are a lot more things you can do with ChatGPT and just a lot more capabilities, even on the free version, but particularly on the version that you pay for, just the speed and the amount of things you can do. But again, if you're limited on budget and can only do the free version, it's still available. ChatGPT 5 is available for free. It's just a slower, less accessible offering than if you're paying for it, but it's worth trying. A couple of background pieces here. What does GPT mean? You may be asked this sometime, and everyone's just using ChatGPT as a well-known term now, but I bet most people don't know what it means. Well, it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. This is probably nothing you'll ever need to know, but it's kind of interesting. Generative means it can create or generate text or other content. Pre-trained means precisely what that says. It was trained on a large amount of text data before being fine-tuned for specific tasks. So basically a lot of what's on the internet up to about 2023, I believe is the date now, is what it was trained on. And it can also look at the internet, do a search to do something a little more up to date than that if needed. And then transformer is the type of neural network architecture it uses. It basically understands language patterns, and it's the way that this works. So GPT, if you ever are asked, that's what it means. There's something called generative AI, and that is kind of a super creative robot that has read, seen, or listened to millions of things and then uses what it's learned to create something brand new that never existed before. So if you're using something like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok, those are examples of generative AI. They create new things based on previous knowledge. Then there's something called agentic AI, which is more in conversation this year and will be going forward. The simple definition is it's a computer program that doesn't just wait for you to tell it what to do. It can decide on its own how to reach a goal you give it. So self-driving cars are an example. Some of those customer service chatbots you hear on telephone calls, smart home assistants that can learn patterns, like what time you turn off the lights, and then they start doing it on their own. So it still depends on information that it's been given, but then it takes that information and can turn it into something brand new and maybe even make decisions that you didn't ask it to make. So a little bit science fiction sounding there, but I think we'll see that there are some good things we can do with that. Last term I want to throw at you is vibe coding. That is using everyday language to ask AI to create something, whether it's a game, a website, an app, without ever needing to write code. It's kind of wonderful if you don't write code, but you now have access to be able to create things that used to require someone who is versed in writing code. So I asked ChatGPT, show me some examples of how vibe coding might be used in a Christian ministry. And it gave me all these. I'll quickly run through them, not word for word, because you can read it too, but designing a Bible verse app, and then adding backgrounds and reminders that match the scripture themes, creating a worship lyric projection system. If you do this for your church, for example, and the slides come together in the right order with good transitions, building an online prayer request wall, coding a children's Bible game, setting up a church live stream system, making a missionary support website, developing a Bible quiz app for a youth group, automating a follow-up system for new believers. Churches are using this and finding that it's really useful. Building a scripture memory tool, whatever that may look like, but throw some ideas out and it will give you ideas back. And then updating a church website for Easter or for Christmas or something where you're needing to put a theme together on a website. Now, all of these obviously could be used in a ministry organization setting also, but those are just examples that it returned to me in about 2 seconds. And the more questions you ask, the more and the deeper it will go into some of these ideas. Let me give you an example of vibe coding with ChatGPT. One of our Wycliffe South Africa folks asked, how can we use AI to be more effective in the prayer ministry? Can AI set up 24/7 prayer schedules with scriptures? The answer is yes. And here's how I quickly did an example of this. So I told ChatGPT I want to set up a 24/7 global prayer schedule with scriptures. It should be interactive, where users can add requests, prayers, and encouragements. And that was all I said at first. And so I get this back from ChatGPT again within less than 5 seconds. It sounds like you want something more than a static list of prayer times. You're envisioning a living, interactive space where people around the world can sign up for prayer times, post requests, share encouraging scriptures, and possibly mark answered prayers. And so then it gives me this structure of how to put this together with time slots, a sign-up system, a rotating set of scriptures, and a map about who's praying and where, what slots are filled. It goes on into some more interaction, prayer request boards, encouragement posts, answered prayer tracking, comments and replies, and a live prayer room. So all of that, this could build for you. And then it gives you some tools to build it. There are some specific applications you can grab and use, and it gives you some suggestions there. But then it also says, if you like, I can mock up a sample 24-hour schedule with scriptures already paired to each time slot. And it says, would you like me to prepare that? I said, sure. And then the answer is, all right, here's a sample 24-hour global prayer schedule with scriptures laid out in UTC, which is code broken into hourly slots, and it groups them to give themes and things. And here is what it looks like. This is a sample 24/7 global prayer schedule. Now, if you were wanting to take this and structure it around a specific theme from scripture, you could certainly do that. This one just sort of used general themes, but that's something you could certainly tweak within AI here. It goes on and on. So there's 24 hours of prayer scheduled there with themes and verses attached. Then it gives next step for interactivity. It could turn this into a web-based interactive prayer board where people click a slot to sign up for it. The verse automatically appears in that slot. People can post prayer requests, write encouragements. Then it says, if you want, I can draft a mock-up of how that interactive schedule would look and function, so you can show it to others or to a web developer. You want me to go ahead and make that mock-up? I said, sure. So here's what this looked like. And again, this is all just based on that very short question I asked it at the beginning. There is no additional direction here. It's running with this. And so this is what it looks like, what it would look like on screen. You can see that there are prayer requests, a place to submit prayer requests. Currently, there are 3 people praying. And then there's those scriptures and those time slots. I asked, can you show me the code for this? And it said, yes, here it is. And so if you needed the code to either put this onto a website yourself or to give it to a web developer, this is what you would use. And this goes on and on for screens and screens. So there's a lot of code here. But the thing I'm wanting to show you here is just how easy it is to get code from some simple instructions that you give it, and you don't have to know anything about writing code. Now, is this perfect? Of course not. Is it a fantastic start if you are looking to develop something like this? Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's something that would be a tool worth trying and using and seeing what you can do with it. So that's a quick example of vibe coding using ChatGPT. A couple other questions that came up from our South Africa group, and I want to share with everyone. How can avatars be used in sign language translations? For example, if it's not safe for the person's real face to be visible in recordings. We have a story on Wycliffe.net about that very topic, and it's called AI Opens a New World for Sign Language Translation. So if you're interested in that area, I would encourage you to read that story. There are some links to 3 developers or development products that are being worked on: Chameleon, Lava, and Avoda Connect. So take a look at those if you're interested in that sign language issue. Then the next question came, how can AI be used to create voice translations from one language to another with the actual voice of the original speaker? It's the same person speaking, but instead of speaking English, they're now speaking Spanish, for example. This would replace the need for dubbing, voiceovers, or subtitles. Can you do this? Yes, you can. This is something called HeyGen Labs, Heygen. And there are many YouTube videos that would show you kind of an introductory look at how you could do this on that app. So yes, the answer is you can put a video of yourself speaking one language and turn it into a video of yourself speaking another language in your voice. It's, again, kind of sci-fi and kind of seems a little magical, and clearly there is potential for people to take this in a bad direction as well. But in terms of being able to use it for some of the things that we do in Bible translation and supporting ministries, wow, there's quite an opportunity there. Is there potential for taking oral recordings and generating videos from them like animated stories? Yes, there is. Here's a YouTube video that talks about how to do that. It's I'll put these in the description below the video, by the way, on our webpage. You can use something called 11 Labs. You can use something called Descript. There are several ways you can create animated videos from oral recordings without having to generate those yourself. And there's some interesting possibilities there. What AIs could I use to create modern and catchy PowerPoint presentations? Lots of them. ChatGPT will come up with something for you. There's something even better out there called Gamma, and I would suggest giving that a try. There's a free version and a paid version. The paid version would do, I think, everything you'd ever want in PowerPoint could now be done in something called Gamma, where it creates it itself with just some text from you and some instruction from you. So if PowerPoints and those sorts of slideshow presentations are something where you have a need and feel like you don't have the skills available or the skills necessary to do that, Gamma is something you could try. Can we trust how AI summarizes and rewords things that we put into it, or might it change the information? The answer is be careful. And certainly don't trust AI to just do writing for you without checking it and without making sure that it's accurate. It can introduce inaccuracies. It can state things poorly or kind of in a clunky way that may not sound like us. And so that's something to be a little cautious about for sure. It does give you a start, and it's a good way if you're looking to just start from zero on something. You can make some good progress that way. Here is something to be aware of. This is a quote from an author named Karen Swallow Prior. She's writing in Christianity Today. She says, because AI increasingly relies on copyrighted material taken without the author's permission, in using AI, you may be stealing someone else's work, even if you don't know whose work it is. That's a huge concern for me as a writer, for anyone who has written copyrighted material or produced photographs or graphic design or anything, code even, where there is intellectual property involved, and the laws are going to be different in different countries. But you may be breaking laws if AI is taking copyrighted material and presenting it as yours. So it's something to be awfully careful about. And when you can cite sources, continue to do that. Sometimes it makes up quotes too, by the way. So if you're using it to produce any sort of a news story, be very careful about quotes, because I've encountered that where it will take notes and turn it into a news story, but then it makes up a quote that the person didn't actually say. And of course, we don't want to be doing that. A tech writer previewed ChatGPT 5 and asked why this is a big deal, and he got this response. Again, this was just a quick prompt that they wrote that didn't ask it to do anything specific, but he got this response. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'd like you to take a look at the first letter of each sentence. Starts with THIS. And what it does is spell out, this is a big deal, with the first letter of each sentence. The other interesting thing here is each sentence is precisely one word longer than the previous sentence. Now, the writer didn't ask it to do this. It just came up with a creative approach completely on its own. I think that's fascinating. And that, again, is one of those things where ChatGPT 5 really has made some strides, and it will do creative work on its own, even assuming that you may want something like this, and then you could certainly take it and revise it from there. So different things to try. I would just encourage you to experiment and see what works for you and your ministry and your organization with ChatGPT, with some of the other tools that I've mentioned. How do I keep up with all this? This information changes really every week or two, and there are new products, there are new capabilities. How do you keep up? My advice would be find some YouTube channels that you find really helpful. Here are some that I have found helpful. This is certainly far from a complete list, but if you want a starting point, try some of these, and it will just kind of keep you up to date with some of the new things that some of the major players in AI are putting out there. Otherwise, we'll just continue this conversation within the Alliance. I would encourage you, if you've got questions or comments or ideas about more training we could be doing or sharing, let me know. You can email me at info@wycliffe.net. And that's our general email address that will catch anything like that. And we would be glad to have that conversation with you. So thanks for your time. I hope this was helpful, and have fun playing with AI.